Hello there, I'm Dave Wagner. Welcome to another episode of
Come On Down
with Rich Fields right here. This is a podcast that is really all about Rich's time in Hollywood, working on The Price is Right with both Bob Barker and Drew Carey. It's really all about game shows in general, because over the years you have lent your voice to some, 9 different game shows?
9 different game shows,
and titles in your lifetime. So it's bells, buzzers, and anything game shows. And boy, do we have a treat for you today.
Oh, we sure do. We've been publicizing this for a couple of weeks, and viewers are very excited. If you don't know much about this guy, he was born in San Francisco. He's a California native. I won't say what year. He worked on Match Game, Family Feud, Double Dare, The Price is Right, of course. Now You See It. He started on The Price is Right in 1972. As a staff member, became a producer in '84, I believe. We'll have Roger check on all this in a second. Created some 18 different pricing games on The Price is Right.
Unbelievable. Creative guy.
And he's won 5 Emmys. Ladies and gentlemen, Roger Dobkowitz. All right, Roger.
Welcome. Great to have you here, Roger.
It's fun to be here. I always like talking about game shows and Price is Right.
Yeah, this is going to be the end all to a lot. I mean, there's a lot of rumors on the internet. There's a lot of things people don't know about. And I always say you need to ask Roger.
Yeah, go straight to the source.
Go straight to the source. So am I right, 5 Emmys?
Well, I really have 6 because Barker had 21. Wow. And one day he said, Roger, I want you to have one of my Emmys. I rather give them away than have my heirs give them away. So he started giving them away. He said, I'm giving you this one. This is the very last one I won. So I want you to take good care of it. So I have 6.
6, that's awesome. You know, Bob gave me something too. Price is Right mug.
What did he give you?
Yeah, a $1.50 mug, Roger.
I love this mug because it came right out of Bob Barker's cupboard in his kitchen, so I'll never give it away. I know they sell them. I know anybody can get them, but I love it.
Yeah, well, it kind of shows the difference between your status at The Price is Right. Roger, you got an Emmy Award from Bob Barker. Rich, you got a cup.
Got a cup. That's how much you loved me. Real quick, Roger, how many years total in game shows?
I worked 36 years in game shows.
Wow.
I started out, I was always a game show nut. When I was a little kid, I used to watch the game shows. Game shows have been forgotten now, like Seven Keys and The Big Payoff. And then when I was about to enter college, I was going to study law. And I was going through the little booklet they give you to schedule your classes and everything. I was paging through it for the pre-law classes. And they taught classes in television. I thought, that's what I want to learn. I want to learn television. So I changed my major right away, and I studied television. I went on to write a thesis on game shows, and that thesis found its way all the way to New York City and Mark Goodson, and I had an interview with Mark Goodson, and he hired me for The Price is Right.
So he hired you off of your thesis?
Right. He hired me. I met him in New York. And it's funny. Everybody always laughs at this, but I've told this lots of times. So he turns to me and he says, "Okay, he hasn't hired me yet." He says, "So Roger, when are you flying back to L.A.?" And I said, flying back? I'm driving back.
Oh my God.
His eyes, his is multi-millionaire. His eyes open up and he says, you're driving back? I said, yeah, I drove my VW all the way here. And so I left the meeting and I got back to the hotel and there was already a note there saying, please see Mark Goodson tomorrow. I went back to his office tomorrow and he said, I'm going to hire you, Roger, because apparently you have a lot of initiative if you chose to drive all the way to New York for an interview. Wow. I'm going to put you on a new show that I'm starting. I don't know what I want you to do on the show yet, but it's just starting. We're bringing back Price is Right. Wow. So that you're going to have a job in 2 months. It was 2 months before it really started.
That's fantastic, Roger. Wow, what a story.
Did you know?
I had nothing to do. And I had nothing to do on Price is Right for the first 2 or 3 weeks. I literally had nothing to do. I sat in my office.
That is fantastic. Well, you got paid for doing almost nothing there at the beginning, and by the end you were doing a lot of work.
Everything.
Did you know the legend of Mark Goodson at that point? Did you know that name well?
Yes, because he was so famous and so big in the business. I didn't even send him my resume. My resume was my thesis. I had sent my thesis out to all these other producers, and I didn't even bother with Mark Goodson because he's so big. I thought he's never going to hire little me. Somebody else had passed my thesis on to him, so that's how he got it. I knew he was big, but I thought he was so big he wouldn't hire little me, so I didn't even offer it to him.
So you didn't even send it to him? I'll be darned.
No.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Ron Greenberg, who is a producer in game shows, got it, and he was impressed by it. He said, "I'm gonna send this to, I'm gonna pass this thesis on to people."
What, was that the last time you drove cross country like that for a job interview?
Yes, that was the last time. That was my only job. People laugh at me because I really only had one job. I worked on other shows, but I had one job for 36 years. I never had to find another job.
That's amazing.
I was
Roger,
very, very fortunate.
Roger once told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, you know, in the game, Match Game, you remember Charles Nelson Riley always sat upper, that Roger, apparently you were like right next to Charles Nelson Riley just off camera, right? That was your spot?
Right. That was my spot.
What did you do?
I did cue cards on that show.
You did cue cards?
Whenever a contestant would fill in the blank, I would have to write it down and hold up the card so Gene would remember what the contestants said. And I, of course, became the butt of jokes, but I didn't mind being the butt of jokes because I am a little bit of a ham. So not on purpose, I would spell things wrong, and they would laugh at me because I wasn't able to spell. And
that's hilarious.
And Charles would make fun of me because my hobby was roller coasters, so he sort of laughed at that. And so Gene threw things at me, so I became sort of part of the show, the shenanigans going on, which was fun.
Do you remember Zelda by any chance?
Yes, Zelda.
The mannequin?
The mannequin,
Zelda?
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
We're looking at a picture of Charles Nelson Riley with Zelda in his lap. This is apparently from the very last episode of Match Game. What was Zelda used for? Tell everybody.
Zelda was cameras during pre-rehearsals were focused on Zelda for, I guess, to get all their color correct, or originally black and white, I guess. Black and white and color correctly. The camera would just focus on them for an hour, and then we would start rehearsal and everything should be, all the cameras would have been adjusted based on the colors she was wearing. She would wear, you can see the little triangle there on her chest, different color there.
I had heard that this was actually a real person at one time that used to sit there and get color balance and so on and so forth. Is that true?
I don't know for a fact that it's true, but it certainly sounds quite logical and reasonable that that's what it was.
Is it true that Charles Nelson Riley had a thing for Zelda?
No, Charles Nelson Riley had a thing for me.
Yeah.
No, he used to always say, he used to turn down, here I'm a young man in Hollywood, not married yet. He used to, Roger, come on my boat this weekend. Come on my boat. No, Charles, I'm not going out on the boat.
Wow. I bet you got a million great stories. But we have so many questions for you. Real quick, let me just start with one here, because we've talked about this on the podcast before, but maybe you can finally put this to bed for us. How much did Bob Barker make by the time he was done with The Price is Right? Do you know?
No, he never told me. He never told me.
Can you take a guess? Do you have an educated guess?
I think we used to say $5 million a year, $5 to $10 million a year. I don't know. I mean, he asked for stuff, and they gave it to him. I remember he was about to retire at one point. One point, he phoned me up in the morning, and he said, "Roger, I think I'm going to hang up my hat this year. I think I'm going to make this the last season." I said, "No, Bob, you can't do that. You can't do that, Bob." "Oh, no, Roger, I think it's done." "No, Bob, everybody still loves you. Everybody still did it." And I went on and on for about 5 or 10 minutes. And he said, "Oh, okay, Roger, I'll do another year." I felt, did I actually convince Bob to do another year?
And thank God you did. What year was that?
It was about 5 years before he quit, because he signed a 5-year contract. And so I thought, I did it. It was me.
Wow, good for you.
Nice.
You know, there's some irony in the fact, Roger, that this is a pricing game, but nobody knows or has any idea how much Bob Barker made.
Yeah.
That price is a mystery.
Well, that's Hollywood for you. Hollywood, you always hear, "Oh, so-and-so makes so much money." Nobody's going to reveal how much they really make. Right. Their PR guy will always say their star makes more money than they really make, because that's how they negotiate their next contract. So if you hear a star saying, "Oh, you made $15 million on a picture," you might have only made $5 million. You know, that's PR stuff. You can't believe those statements you get out of Hollywood.
Right.
I used to tell people I made $4 million. No, I didn't. No.
Hey, if you look up me at Richfield's net worth, it says something like 18 million. I'm like, what the hell has Christine been doing all the money?
You know, it's funny. People outside the business, other than the big stars and the big hosts, people outside the business think all of us just make fantastic amounts of money. People used to think, like, for instance, the models, "Oh, they're making fortune." But the models only at that time made about $100,000 a year. But people thought they made like, "Oh, they must be making $1 million a year." But most of us don't. You know, most of us we make a good salary, but we don't make as much as these people think we make.
Right, and we're all living in California where everything is overpriced.
Right. And point of correction.
We always thought, why didn't you buy that boat and buy that mansion, because you were making so much money? We thought you were cheap. You were a misery person.
A point of correction, though, Roger, when Rich mentioned the $18 million, it was speculated that he may make. Actually, that was $18 million worth of memorabilia that he removed from The Price is Right.
Yes.
How much memorabilia did Rich take from the show? Was he always that first person to step up and say, "Could I have that?"
Yes, you were smart.
Yeah. Yes.
If I knew Max Game was going to become a cult show, I would have taken a lot of stuff from that show, I took barely nothing from that show. And same thing with early years of Price is Right. Who knew the show was going to be on for 35 years and become a cult show?
Right.
I didn't take that much. I didn't. I wish I had.
What kind of memorabilia do you have?
I have.
Besides the Emmys.
I have this.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
That was in a show. That was
showcase?
In a
yeah.
And this was used in the very first balance game, which flopped.
Oh yeah, balance game.
Brought back balance game. I have just little things like that. Nothing really big. I wish I had more big stuff stuff I could sell.
Well, Rich will sell you his for $18 million, Roger.
I used to have 2 storage units full of stuff, from podiums to Easy as 1, 2, 3, I think it was. Remember the big, tall neon 1, 2, and 3? I had the number 1. I had a bunch of stuff, but I got rid of it all when I left California.
What you mean? You just got how? How did you get rid of it? Did you?
I sold some of it. I gave some away. Left some on the street. I gave, the carpet in front of the big wheel with the Goodson daisy on it?
Yeah.
The red carpet? Well, they replaced that, and I got the old one. I had it cleaned, and it looked absolutely brand new. And so I rolled it up, and I couldn't move it. This thing was so heavy. Well, you know, Roger, I mean, it took 3 guys probably in a dolly to get it out onto the stage. And I was moving from California, and I had no room in the truck. I had a Harley in there, and Christine's car, and everything from the house, and I couldn't fit it in. And one of the moving guys saw some of the stuff that they were packing up, and he was like, "El precio correcto? Senor Barker?" I said, yeah. And so I knew he was a fan, and I actually gave him the carpet from in front of the big wheel. And I drove with him over his house, and he put it in his living room. He took all the furniture out of his living room and rolled it out and put all the furniture back in.
And this is the moment when Roger Dobkowitz begins to sob.
You realize how many people on eBay, Price is Right, super fans would have given you quite a little bit of money for that carpet.
Yeah, I realize that now.
Rich hasn't always made the best decisions in his life, Roger. Do you remember? Do you know the story about how Rich broke into the Price is Right studios? Do you know that story?
No. I think we had him arrested, didn't we?
I don't know.
I don't know if I ever talked to Roger about it. Kathy Greco I did, because she was there the day it happened, but my dad and I snuck into CBS when I was 18, and we got caught backstage by some gaming people, and they had to sequester us. And it was the day I met Johnny Olson, because you guys had to seat me in the very back row and keep an eye on me and Dad, because we'd seen all the prices and prizes backstage. And that was the day during Johnny's warm-up. He said, "Any questions?" I said, "Yeah, Johnny, how do I get your job?" And he pulled me up on stage to say, "Come on down."
Were those the days when we didn't have any security at CBS?
Apparently so.
I'm serious. I remember my first 2 or 3 years of working at CBS, we just walked through the front door. We just walked through. There was no badges, nothing. We just walked through, and I always thought that was amazing how people just walk through the front door onto the studio.
Well,
so is that how you got in? You just walked in?
No, we went through that the gate between CBS and the Grove, that circular turnstile gate.
And then you walked up the ramp.
We walked up the ramp next to the commissary, right into the hallway, and all the prizes were out. You guys were getting ready to do a show.
Yeah. So Rich's dad is somewhere between being a good dad and a felon. If you could strike somewhere in the middle. His dad helped sneak him in because he knew Rich was so crazy about this show. Yeah. Rich is back there looking at the prices that are about to be revealed on the show, and all of a sudden, he hears somebody say, "Hey,
gaming official." It was some gaming official, and he was like, "What are you guys doing here? Are you part of the production company?" And my dad said, "Oh, that's right. I'm just showing my son around." And he's like, "Well, who are you?" So, I laughed with Kathy about it many times. She was there. She was the one that came out and had to come get us. This guy backstage was like, "Hey, I need somebody back here right away." And it was Kathy Greco with her little clipboard, and she was like, "Who are you people? What are you doing here?"
Yeah, too bad you didn't run into me, because I was always a little bit more generous and nicer to the people who visited the show or even snuck in, because I knew how they felt. So it was too bad you didn't run into me.
Ditto, I agree. But it changed my life.
Hey, I would have said, "You want to meet Bob? I'll take you to Bob. I'll take you to Bob."
Wow, that would have been something as an 18-year-old kid.
That's the kind of person I was always with these visitors and people who try to see the stuff behind the set. So.
Roger, do you remember the time that Rich called you? Roddy had died, and Rich
Yeah.
called you kind of out of the blue, and told you he was interested in
Oh,
being an announcer. Do you remember that well?
oh, I remember that. I was sitting in my office. I remember him calling,
What did you
and I
think? That's
remember
pretty bold.
it was pretty bold. We did have people like that did not too many, but I had I think I picked up the phone directly, didn't I, Rich?
You
I
did,
didn't
and I
have my.
told that story. Hi, it's Roger, and I was like, "Oh my God!" He picked up the phone. I couldn't believe it, man.
I used to pick up my phone a lot, and I remember talking to you and telling you what you had to do. You had to submit. I said, put your voice down some tape, and send it to me, and we'll listen to it. Isn't that what I said?
That's
Basically, I
exactly
think I
what you said. Send me something. My calling card was, I said, Roger, you don't know me from a hole in the wall, but I used to work at a Mark Goodson show in Florida, the Florida Lottery's Flamingo Fortune. And you were like, oh, wow, so you're a game show announcer. I said, well, I want to be. Yeah, definitely.
Yes, I remember that. And then I remembered when we had the big discussion of who to hire. It was between two or three people. And then Bob said, let's go with Rich. And I said, oh, great. And then he said, Raj, I want you to call him.
Yes,
And that
handpicked
was,
by Bob Barker.
How about that? Did you see
oh,
something?
I get to convey the good news. I was so excited. I thought, this is really will make Rich happy. Will make anybody happy. And I thought, I get to do it. It was like, Bob used to do things like that, or
Yeah.
somebody else in the company would phone up the person and say, you have the job. But no, Bob wanted me to do it. So it
I
made
remember
me
the
very
night
happy.
you called me. I was still a meteorologist at CBS2 in Palm Springs, and it was just a couple minutes before the 6 o'clock show. My wife called me, and she said, hey, this is after the audition process was almost, I did 2 weeks already on the air with Bob. And she said, hey, Roger Dobkowitz just called, and he wants you to call him back at the house right now.
Wow.
And I was all mic'd up and everything. There was just seconds to go before the show, so I picked up the phone real quick, and I called Roger at home. I said, hi, Roger, it's Rich Fields. And Roger was like, yeah, hey, one quick question for you. And I said, yeah, what's that? And Roger says, how would you like to work on The Price is Right?
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, yeah, Roger, that's why I'm going through the process. And Roger said, no, I'm offering you the job.
Wow.
Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember that. Yes, I
I'll never
absolutely
forget
do.
it.
I remember,
bet.
I remember
Roger?
where I was standing. I remember where I was when you called, and I remember where I was standing when I had to call you.
That is so awesome.
do.
Did you see something in Rich? You were a guy who drove across country to be a part of the game show industry. Did you see something in Rich that you saw in yourself, that kind of initiative?
Yes, I always admired anyone that took initiative, that took that chance, that phones up or contacts the head guy. Why start with the underlings? You just go straight to the top. Might as well. And I admired that. I admired that. It takes a certain kind of guts to do it.
I
Bravery.
remember, I think I had just started. It was like my first week, and you had come into my dressing room to give me scripts or something. I can't remember the reason. But I do remember you getting ready to walk out the door, and you pulled the door open, started to walk, and you closed it, and you looked back at me, and you said, by the way, what took you so long? Do you remember that?
No.
That's all right. I do,
don't.
because I was like, wow. He's asking me, what took you so long to, get here and call me? And
Wow.
yeah. Yeah.
That-
You guys
that
changed
was-
my life.
Good. Well, yes, we realize that too. We realize not only do we change lives like yours, which has really been changed, but we realize almost everybody that we touch on this show, the lives have been changed. Down to a contestant. When we call a contestant, that person's life, when he gets up on stage, will be changed forever.
Right.
His most outstanding memory of his life
Right.
was being on the stage, standing next to Bob. He will remember that and talk about it and cherish that for the rest of his life, and we realized that. And that's why we were always so nice to our contestants. We treated them very nicely and very gingerly, and we loved them. We loved them. We just knew how important it was for them to be there.
Are you in contact with Bob at all?
His family is right now. He's of course, very fragile, I have to say. Well, we all knew that. His family sort of protects him quite a bit from outsiders,
Right, they've kind of cut him off from everybody else, really.
Yeah, I don't know his exact state of health. I understand their position. I'm not a family member. I'm just his friend, and I do want to say I think for the last few years of the show, I'm not trying to build myself up as such a wonderful person, but I think I was his best friend because he confided in me a lot, and we kept in contact after he left the show quite a bit, and then it sort of stopped as he got older, and I couldn't get to him anymore. I left messages, tell Bob I called, okay, we will. And it got to a point where messages were not returned anymore. So,
right, ditto. Last time I talked to him was his birthday, December 12th of 2019. And after that, no, he wouldn't pick up the phone anymore. And then after that, the phone number was changed. And I spoke with his publicist, Will Parapis, and he said that was done on purpose. Rich, it's not just you. A lot of people are cut off of Bob now.
Yeah.
Is he a fairly private person? Was he always a fairly private person?
Oh, he was extremely private. He didn't care for the social life. He loved going home after he was devoted to his wife, and after he lost her, he just went home. He loved watching the History Channel. He would call me up and we would talk about politics and about what's going on in the world. And like I said, I think I was his closest friend. We would go out to dinner 2 or 3, 4 times a year. And he was an amazing man. This is the dinner story I like to tell about him, to let you know what kind of a guy he was. We'd go out to dinner. We would go out to dinner like a regular Mexican restaurant. We would sit in a regular booth, no quiet booth in the back or in the corner. And we'd sit there, my wife, I, and him, and we would be eating dinner. And then people would walk by, and you could watch them walk by, and they said, well, that's Bob Barker. And they all respected his privacy. But every so often, there would be one person who said, Bob, that's you. Oh, Bob, can I have a picture next to you? And he'd be in the middle of eating his dinner, literally putting food in his mouth. And he would put the food down, and he said, okay, you can have a picture. He would stand up and take a picture with them. And then he would sit down. I said, Bob, I said, it's so nice that you do that. Most stars of Hollywood would say, buzz off, get out of my way. I'm trying to eat my dinner. He said, Roger, he said, these are the people that got me where I am today. Without these people, I would have nothing. So that's why I do it. And he would always do that very, very generously. Wouldn't get mad at them at all.
Boy, that says a lot about the man.
He was very respectful to his fans.
You know, we think of Bob Barker as being sort of this forever young guy. I remember what a great punch he had when he hit was it Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore. Yes. But his golfing, he just seemed always so spry. But I take it now, he's up there in his years and is having some struggling with health a bit.
Right. Remember, he did the show till he was 83.
Wow.
And he was in pretty good shape at 83. And hopefully when I hit 83, I'm aiming for the same kind of health that he had at his 83. And he moved a lot. He moved good backstage. He moved around that stage. He was witty. He always remained witty. He was witty in front of the cameras, and he was witty behind the cameras. He was the same person behind the cameras as he was in front of the cameras. A lot of people think, oh, he was a different person behind the cameras. No. He was witty and friendly and nice behind the cameras. You'll hear some people say, oh, but he was so mean and tough. Barker had two hats. He was the MC and Barker, and then he was the executive producer. And when he put on the executive producer hat, he was dead serious. He loved The Price is Right. He was extremely protective of the show. And if he ever got a whiff of something being done wrong, or somebody being really lazy, or really being awful to the show, he'd call him in his office. And he would let them have it. I mean, he's yelled at me for my mistakes. And that's where some people say, oh, he was mean and he was cruel to people. No. He put on his executive producer hat, and he became that executive producer which protects his show.
Yeah, and I'll tell Dave and Roger, you know this, Bob's knees were killing him, his back hurt him, and no matter how much pain he was in the morning, he'd get dressed, he'd put his suit on, and he'd be standing behind door 2, and the announcer would be, now here's the star of The Price is Right. Bob would literally start standing up real tall, Bob Barker, and he'd come through the doors like the Bob Barker you know and see every day, but he would literally buoy himself up to come through every day.
Right. He would bounce through those doors. He always told me, Roger, put some more bounce in. Sometimes I would slouch and everything. He said, Roger, stand up straight and put some more bounce in your step. He was right. I was still cool. I was in my 50s or 60s, and I was already acting like I was an old man, so he was right. Put some bounce in my step and stand up straight.
So I've heard Bob is wheelchair bound. Is that true, Roger? Do you know?
I would imagine. His last fall was quite devastating to him. He fell. And he had to stay immobile. I was still talking to him at that time. He had to stay immobilized in his bed for 6 months. He broke something in his back, it was. And he actually had to stay still for up to 6 months. It drove him nuts. He didn't like it. And about near the end of that healing process is when slowly I lost contact with him. So he might be. He might be.
Yeah. When it comes to Bob, we talk about him being kind of his authentic self. Do you think, Roger, that's what makes a good game show host? Being your authentic self, being the same off camera as you are on TV. Obviously, there's a certain performance, angle to this as well.
Oh yeah, I think all successful game show hosts are like that. The ones I met are I met Monty. I knew Monty Hall, Tom Kennedy, Jack Nars, except for Gene Rayburn is a different story.
Well, tell
but
us.
they're all nice. They were
Tell
all
us about
nice.
Gene
Oh
Rayburn.
boy. Okay, here we go.
No, they were all nice. They were all gentlemen. They were all nice to people backstage. They were nice to the people who worked the show. They were just nice people. Gene was different. Gene was there was an angry part of him. There was a mean part.
Was
of
it the
him.
liquor on the stage? Was that part of the problem?
No, he was.
Because there was, right? I heard in the old Goodson days there was liquor backstage.
Oh, everybody was drinking. Oh yeah, between not only on the Nash Game of Stars. I was just talking the other day to my wife. I said I can't believe that between shows on Price is Right, we used to have a long break, like a 2-hour break, and everybody went across the street and drank for 2 hours, and then came back and did a show.
I can't even imagine. Oh my God!
Can't imagine what could go wrong.
I'll bet it made for great shows.
It did. I mean, I remember that I was in charge of, at that time, I was in charge of all the little prices that were put in and calculations and things like that. And there I was, after having 3 or 4 whiskey sours, I was still doing it okay. I'm amazed, you know. And there was not, it wasn't looked down upon. That was a different era. Oh, he had 3 or 4 drinks. Oh, as long as he can do the show, fine, you
That's
know.
crazy. You know, there.
Different
As you look
time.
back at some of these old game shows, Roger, there is so much sexual innuendo in some of them. Was that just very much a part of the shtick back in the day?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean that's what I guess that's what made Max Game, because that Max Game was the first one to really get into the innuendos, um, and it worked for that show. You know, there were certain words we couldn't. It was funny. We couldn't say prostitute, but we could say. Wait a minute. We couldn't say prostitute. We could say whore, I think,
Oh
or
my
something.
God.
We couldn't say breast, but we could say boobs. You know, they had all these strange rules. Yeah, I think we couldn't say prostitute, but we could say whore.
Oh my
Isn't that
goodness.
amazing?
Hey, look at Steve
Yeah.
Harvey on Family Feud now.
Yeah.
It's so riddled with sexual innuendo.
Oh, sure.
It almost turns some folks
Oh.
off.
Oh, the new Max Game drives me nuts. I watched the new Max Game with Alec
Baldwin.
uh, Baldwin, and the questions are straightforward sex questions. And you know what? I don't want to be a Mr. Goody Two Shoes or something, but I don't care for that. It's innuendo is far more fun than just coming out and putting in sex jokes and sex questions and just, you know, I just found the show kind of very bad taste, extremely bad taste. Yeah, and like, give me a break. Alec Baldwin is not a game show host, you know, and they put him there. This is a point. This gets me going. I'll tell you what gets me going.
All right, let's
Is
hear
that
it.
game shows today that are coming out today are not really game shows. They're scripted reality shows. Game shows, up until digital editing, were always done live to tape. It was like a live show. You had to have an MC that knew the show from top to bottom, who knew how to be charming, who knew how to take care of problems while the show is taping, who knew how to handle everything. They were hard to find. I mean, there were only a few really good game show hosts, and they went from show to show to show to show. And then digital editing came and reared its ugly head, because you know you did shows live to tape because tape was hard to edit. It was, you actually had to splice it, and technicians, of course, got better and better over the years, but that was hard to do. So you mainly always did shows live to tape. Hopefully, did the whole show with one take. But then digital editing came, and now you could pick anybody to be a host, like Alec Baldwin. And because you can stop tape, oh, stop tape, let's tell him what to do now. Oh, there's a problem. Oh, he doesn't know what to do. Okay, let's stop tape and let's redo it. Oh, we don't like the contestant. Let's stop tape and we'll redo it. It's completely scripted today. It's no longer a reality show, and that really bothers me. You have some still. Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy are still done live to tape. But these other shows, they're getting these has-been actors and actresses to be hosts. They're not hosts. They're just now a performer, you know. And these new game shows they're not game shows. They're scripted reality shows, including the contestants who are told how to act, what story to tell,
Right.
and that's not fun anymore. I watch these shows and they just don't have it. They're not fun.
Agreed.
Very predictable. What was great,
Yeah.
you know, when it comes to unpredictable, what was the most unpredictable thing that you saw on The Price is Right during your years?
Oh, the most unpredictable. Well, it really goes back to year one when we had a woman, the woman faint. See, live to tape, she fainted. And so what did we do? We didn't stop tape. Jay Wolpert, our producer at that time, came out and started trying to revive her. Bob took a few steps back and said, I think she's okay. I think she's okay. And the show just went on. Even the show, we never really saw her get up again. We just knew somehow she was okay. But this was the miracle of live to tape, you know? And that was the most amazing thing I ever saw. We had two women faint, and so it was always we always wanted people to faint. We didn't have that many.
What about the time the lady came running on down in her tube top?
Oh, tube top, live to tape again. God bless live to tape. Her tube top came down, and both of them came out, and as she was jumping around, they were both jumping around too, and the audience was laughing, and Johnny Olson was laughing, and Bob didn't even see it because he was backstage, and by the time he came through the doors, she covered herself up. And see, once again, live to tape, you know? God bless. Yeah. That's what makes a good show.
Do you remember the line Bob said to Johnny, what happened out here? What did Johnny say?
Oh, he said, they're giving their all to you, Bob. Isn't that what he said? Yeah.
Bob told that story a lot. She came on down and they came on out.
Crazy.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, Bob was so good at picking up on that humor and letting it kind of run almost a theme at times throughout the show.
Yes. Bob always said, I mean, that was his talent. He said, Roger, he said, what I do out there is I take that contestant and I make him the star for 5 minutes. I make everybody love that person and become the center of attention. And he always ran with that. Sometimes he had a great contestant, he would bring that contestant, he would refer to that contestant several times during the show. He knew how to do that. He had that talent. Amazing talent. Nobody has that talent nowadays. You know, they don't have to. It's all digitally edited. You know, we'll give you the lines. We'll give you the ad-libs. You know, we'll tell you how to act with this contestant.
You know, Roger was talking earlier about Bob having two hats, the host hat and the executive producer hat. And I'll never forget the day, Roger, and I'm going to ask you if you have any recollection of it. Do you remember the day that I accidentally gave away a Corvette on the show?
Yeah. Oh, I do.
Of course he does. It was a $60,000 car.
But you know what? It made good television.
How did we resolve that? How was that fixed? Did we pick up and keep going? Because fans have asked, what happened, Rich? Did you roll out a new game, a new car? How did we resolve that? Did we just give him the car?
I forget. I wish I could remember what game that was. But a $60,000 car would have only been in Golden Road or Three Strikes Plus. So I don't know. I don't exactly remember how we resolved it, unless Bob just said, "Oh, you know the prize. Well, we're forced to give you the car anyway," because he would love doing that. He loved giving away the prizes.
My recollection is that Bob came. We stopped tape, and that was the only time I thought I was in trouble with Mr. Barker. That executive producer hat came on, and he gave me a dirty look like you wouldn't believe. But my recollection is we came back to tape. And Bob said, well, there's nothing left to do but give you the car.
Right. That's probably what, I don't remember precisely, but that sounds very likely what we did. It made Bob look good. It made the show look good. And it wasn't entirely Rich's fault, because somehow on Rich's paper, the price of the car was entered at the bottom of the sheet, and it shouldn't have been entered at the bottom of the sheet. And so you probably read it like we like prize packages are read
Right.
that way. You read the copy, and then down at the bottom it's a prize. A prize package is worth $6,500, and you saw the price, and you said probably
Right.
a car with 60,000, because you were probably on automatic pilot, Rich.
Totally. I don't know how we got through rehearsal and nobody catching it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, yes. I don't know how we got too many rehearsals and nobody caught the mistake. That was so obvious.
You excusing Rich, Roger, is almost like a priest excusing somebody who's done something
totally.
wrong at a confessional.
You were absolved.
I'm only absolving him 50% because he shouldn't have read it.
Shouldn't have read it.
Sure,
Right.
and there's also
We put it down there to tempt him.
that commandment, "Thou shalt not steal," and he has an awful lot of stuff from The Price is Right.
I
You
never
didn't
stole
steal-
anything. I asked somebody.
That was
I may have
all
not
been-
asked the right person, Roger, but I never stole anything.
Yes, that's true.
It would have all been thrown in the garbage heap.
See?
And
Yes.
in the dump back there. So I'm glad you took it. You know, I only wish I had taken some of that.
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thank you, Father. You have absolved his sins again.
But I have something very valuable, Barker dollars.
Oh, nice. Wow, one of the original
These are
Barker
from-
dollars. Yep.
These are from the balance game.
Yeah.
And I think I have quite a few of them, and I think they're quite valuable
Are they?
among the fans.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, among the fans, the Price is Right. And I plan, if my retirement fund runs out, I'm going to sell these.
Nice.
How much would that go for, Roger? Do you think? Have you figured that out?
Well, I would be very careful not to flood the market with the numbers I have. But let's just say I just have the only one left in the world. I bet it would get over $1,000.
$1,000.
Really?
Let's take bids. Let's take bids right now. For crying out loud, we could sell this thing for
That's
Roger.
great. Now we have the California Gaming Commission coming back at you.
You know, it's made with it's good material. It's like solid. It feels like a real silver dollar.
Yeah.
So
Well, we now that people know that you have those for sale, Roger, who knows? You may have this may be a profitable podcast for you here.
It could be,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, before we go, there's a bunch of questions from viewers, and one of the questions is something I get asked about all the time. I know what Lawrence Siegel told me, Roger, but let's just dive into it. This is a message from Nick Michael. He said, most of us loyal fans heard about a supposed dispute between Bob and Rod during Rod's final years, that it was over wanting additional pay for extra $1 million spectaculars, and that Rod's camera time was eliminated due to that. So if this was true, did Bob really go see Rod in the hospital in his final days like Bob has said he did?
Oh, Bob went to see Rod in the hospital. I was with him. I went to the hospital with Bob to say to give wishes to Roddy. Oh yeah, if somebody says we didn't, they're just trying to start a story.
Well,
That's
I think what they're
absolutely-
trying to say is they heard of this dispute and they thought, oh, if Bob and Rod were fighting, did Bob really bury the hatchet and go see Rod in the hospital? And he did. Lawrence told me that Bob and you made a couple of visits.
Yes. No, there was what happened. You know, Rod had an agent, a manager, who was really tough, a real tough one, and fought a lot for Rod. And Rod did not gain any merit points with the business people at Mark Goodson Productions. I don't know, they never told me exactly what he wanted, what Rod wanted. There was a point where day before our series of taping, I got a phone call saying, Roger, have a list of 3 or 4 announcers to call for tomorrow in case Rod doesn't show up. I said, well, Rod might not show up? No, Rod might not show up. This is how close it came for Rod not working the show. I don't know what he was asking for, but it must have been pretty big, and the company was probably pretty pissed off at him. So you got to throw that into the mix. He was not an endearing personality as regards to his pay and his business interests with the company. So
I was
put it
told,
together.
and see if you can add anything to this. I was told that somebody, either a manager or Rod himself, said, hey, there's two main people on this show. There's Bob Barker and there's me. And I talk more than Bob Barker. And that apparently rubbed feathers wrong. Had you heard that?
I did not hear him say that. I heard him say something similar to that, which I thought if Bob hears that or anybody in the market company hears that, they're going to have a fit. I saw him on one of these, he was, I guess, some entertainment show or some news show where they were interviewing him. And Rod called himself co-host of The Price is Right. And I saw that on TV. And I thought, oh my God! If Bob hears that, or anybody at Mark Goodson hears Rod calling him co-host, because there was no way in the world he's co-host. I mean, he might in his mind think he's co-host because he's on camera so much, but he's not co-host. And I thought, whoa! If they ever hear about that, and maybe they did hear about that too.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, it's interesting. Everybody's replaceable on television, as, as a lot of folks have found out over the years, except for Bob Barker. Really not replaceable. When you look at the new show versus the old show, how different is that to you, Roger?
Oh, to me, they're two different shows. They're two different shows. Bob's show, some of the essence, I won't go go on forever, but Bob's show was all about the contestant. Live to tape, all about the contestant was the star. Drew's show is not about the contestant because he doesn't talk to the contestants. He never says, oh, tell me about yourself. He says, where are you from? That's it. He does. The new show is about the show itself. What they try to do is to change the set as often as they seem to be changing the set all the time. They try to get unusual prizes like 100 pairs of designer shoes as a prize. And they do gimmicks all the time. It's about the show now. It's not about the contestants, especially the contestants now all seem to be alike. They all jump and they all scream and they're all, because they have a small audience. They don't even have the 300 people in the audience anymore. It's like a nightclub. It looks like a nightclub. And they call up people and they all act the same. It's beginning to feel kind of cheap. It's like a foreign. I used to watch foreign versions of The Price is Right, and they were kind of cheap looking, you know. And this is unfortunate. This show is now looking like it's you know what? If some people love it, I'm not going to put it down. I mean, really, it's not my cup of tea, and it's so different from Bob's version. It's like a different show.
We have a few more questions for you here from listeners and viewers here. This one's from Christopher Gobb, writes, on the video of the morning of Bob's last show, the slate with the games. The final 3 games were played in reverse order of the first 3 games on Bob's first 1972 episode. Was this by design, Roger?
It was by design. It was. A game missing there, though, is double prices. Double prices should have been played. But Bob did not want to play double prices on his last show. But it was by design. I wanted any number to be the very last game played because that was, of course, his very first game. And I wanted that game won on the last show. But it wasn't. It wasn't won. We tried to make it really easy to be won, but it wasn't won. Yes.
We have some other questions here. This is from somebody named David St. Dennis. Hi, Roger. Doesn't David St. Dennis sound like somebody on TV?
I'm David St. Dennis, CKLW.
2020 News. Hi, Roger. My question is somewhat of a 2 and 2 here. How long does it take to prepare for any game show like The Price is Right for an episode? And also, do you have any advice for someone who wants to be in the game show TV business or maybe who wants to do their own game show on television?
Well, how long it takes to get our show? Well, we start. I guess he means a specific program. How long
Yeah,
it takes from?
Yeah, a
prepare for
typical
a day.
episode.
Well, we it would take about. Okay, we sit down. We say, okay, we're going to plan show number 6334D. Okay, that show will be taped about 7 weeks later. So 7 weeks from the time
Wow,
we
that
sit in
far
the
out.
Wow.
office and say that's what we're going to do, and 7 weeks later it comes alive. Yeah,
And any
and to
advice for
get
someone?
into
Any advice,
get
Roger,
into
for
the
someone who wants to get into the
well,
game show industry?
unfortunately, TV has changed a lot since I left it. I would say to get into TV, you've just got to find program. There's so many TV shows right now, taping, cable, streaming. There's so many. You've got to find out which ones are hiring. I think there are apps and platforms where you can find out where they're hiring, and attach yourself to any show. Um, Attach yourself to any show, and then be your best. You know, it's not so hard. It's not so hard to be your best anymore because there are so many people in the business that are not the best. They don't even know how to show up on time. So as long as you show up on time and do what they tell you, you're going to be top. You're going to be top gun because there's my daughter works on a show in the past, and she used to come home and tell me how inept, not the show she's working on now, but a show she was working on before. She'd come home and tell me how inept everybody was on the staff. They wouldn't show up on time. They didn't know how to do stuff. And all you have to do now is find a job, get on a TV show, and just be on time and listen to what they have to say. And then when they tell you to do it, make sure you do it perfectly.
And when you
You'll
call
be
the
a
company,
producer.
get the head guy.
Yes.
Or break into the CBS studios there with your father. Either way will work for you.
Oh, Roger, this has been great, man. We're going to have you back on. There's so much we want to talk to you about, but there's just not enough time in a podcast.
More. There's so much more. I can tell you the difference between Drew Carey and Bob Barker.
There's our next show with Roger.
Tease. Don't reveal it. Don't reveal it. We want to hear this.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, Roger, this is fantastic. Remember, if you are listening to this episode on your traditional podcast provider like Apple Music or Spotify, you can see most of the photos shown on today's episode here. You can see Roger's beautiful face as well by going to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Come On Down Podcast. Again, that's facebook.com/Come On Down Podcast. Send your questions. Next time we have Roger on, we'll ask some of those questions as well. Roger, you are a gentleman and just great.
God bless you, brother. I love you so much.
And I wanted to prove a point. You know, in social media, they can be awfully mean, you know?
Yeah.
But I just want to point my finger at that one person that always refers to me as a bitter old man. I'm not a bitter old man. I'm quite happy.
No, he's happy. He's joyful.
Yeah.
Oh, God bless you.
We'd like to talk to you again, and we agree. You're not a bitter old man. So.
Okay, good.
Thanks for being on, Roger.
Yeah, so great talking to you.
Love you, man.
Okay,
so, like Dave said, go to our Facebook page, Facebook/Come On Down Podcast. You can see pictures from today's show. You can make comments there. Always try to subscribe to the 10 Tampa Bay YouTube page. It's the only place you can see the podcast. You can catch up and watch any of them there. And you'll also get alerts when the show's about to happen live, or if I'm taking questions live or something like that.
Or if Roger's going to be on.
So, when Roger's going to be on. Exactly right.
This is great. So we hope you join us next time for another episode of
Come On Down.
Thanks for tuning in to Come On Down with Rich Fields. See more photos and videos mentioned on this episode. Plus, interact with Rich on Facebook at facebook.com/ComeOnDownPodcast or on Twitter at ComeOnDownPod. Have a question for Rich? Use Facebook Messenger to connect on our Come On Down Podcast Facebook page. And remember, new episodes are live every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern.